It's October the 24th, 2022. It's about 20 minutes after 9 o'clock in the evening. And here I am once again, because I don't have an option, I don't have a choice in the matter, trying to address persons acting in places they shouldn't be. So before I really get going, and more than likely end up going full fucking ham here, which is more than likely what's going to happen, because I'm speaking to one of the wicked, I have to set up boundaries. So unfortunately for me, I'm held up here in this thing called Canada. And they have all these rules, these legal rules here. These things they call acts. So apparently, there's an act for the preservation and enhancement of multiculturalism in Canada. And it starts off talking about the Constitution. Apparently, every individual is equal before and under the law, and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law without discrimination. Everyone has the freedom of conscience and peaceful assembly and association, and guarantees those rights and freedoms equally to all people. Apparently, the Constitution of Canada recognized the importance of preserving and enhancing the multicultural heritage that allegedly exists here. Well, I don't identify as a citizen, so I'm not going to use that Citizenship Act. I don't identify as a human because I'm not a human. I'm not going to be using the Canadian Human Rights Act. But it goes on to claim that Canada is a party to the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, a convention recognizing that all are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law against discrimination and against any incitement to discrimination. It's also a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a covenant providing that people, like my people, who belong to an ethnic and linguistic minority, shall not be denied the right to use our own culture, the right to enjoy our own culture, and the right to use our own language. So that's what's coming out of my mouth at all material times, is the language of the peculiar people. And we use sentence enhancers when we're enraged, and because I'm an INFJ personality type, I am enraged 24/7. Because I'm paying attention to everything, because I know that everything is important, because it is important. We're all going to be judged on every word and every deed. Whether you understand that or not is irrelevant, because you were surrounded by witnesses. Heaven is a witness, either for you or against you. This earth is a witness, either for you or against you. And if you've ever come into my view at any point, at any time, for any reason, and you are wicked, I also will be a witness against you, as is the one who sent me here. I belong to a race that's hated by this world. We are targeted and under constant attack. We are gang-stalked to literal death. If you're listening to me for the first time, I have survived 2 acts of genocide in less than a decade. And I am an unfortunate client of a service here in British Columbia trying to pass itself off as the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And yet that ministry, like all the other ministries I've ever received service from, does the exact opposite of its claim to fame. Now, who you're looking at here is a male called Nicholas Simmons, and this male is the head, it's the minister of this ministry, which is now being renamed because it has to be renamed to reflect the truth of what it actually does. This is now the Ministry of Social Destruction and Poverty Development, because that's exactly what they do. I've been on this service to no fault of my own for about 4 years now. Because what you have to understand is forced adoption is an act of murder. It's also legally referred to as genocide, because that's exactly what it is. So the attacks never stop on me. I've never once been helped at all by any of the public service agencies where I'm held up. So there's a constant problem. And every time I call up this ministry, when I need some help, I am violently, viciously attacked and tortured by the thing picking up the telephone, referring to itself as a social worker. So now there's a pattern of behavior that's been set up. So it seems to me, and I've spoken and provided clear, concise commands to this person acting as the minister for this ministry and all those involved. About a month ago, I wrote a document filled with the truth and the rules, both lawful and legal, right? Because we're living in an age now where not only the law is completely ignored, but all the legal rules are completely ignored, because none of these sewer rats are being held accountable. None of them are being held accountable, not according to the law and not according to their own legal rules. That's a problem. It sure the fuck is a problem. It's a problem for me, and it better be a problem for you. Because if you're staying silent and you know your neighbors are being destroyed, well, guilt by association, right? Silence is violence. So I do a lot of writing, I have to. I do a lot of research, I have to. So there's rules that have to be followed, right? So first and most importantly, let me explain to you that this individual here, this person here, has their name and their life, along with all the other actors, acting as a minister for whatever ministry they're supposed to be running. You all have your names and your lives written throughout Scripture. Now, if you don't know who I am and what I'm about, I'm a woman of truth who speaks the truth. That's what I'm doing down here. I'm trying to address the wicked, because I have to. And it's so true that those who hate to hear the truth and love to live off lives, you can't handle reality. You can't handle it. That's why you turn around and you viciously, violently torture and attack me. It happens to me constantly. Have you gone in to my YouTube channel or my BitChute channel? And have you listened to how I'm spoken to when I go and I try to report a crime? I, the victim of the crime, am treated like I'm the criminal, because you are ruled by criminals who think backwards, who speak backwards, who act backwards. Right, like children of the devil, they're cursed. That's why they're mad, blind, and confused. Go into your DSM, the book of Leviticus and the book of Deuteronomy, and it lays it out for you there, what the problem is and why they're sick in the head. So what you need to understand about my minority, the peculiar people, we are not friends with the wicked. Like, we don't show respect to the wicked. Because the character of the righteous, those chosen by the king, The righteous hate the wicked, and the wicked hate the righteous. That's why there's a constant battle going on between the living and the dead. The righteous are the living. The wicked are the dead. The wicked are the blind and the deaf. My brother explained this to you, that the blind lead the blind. The blind lead the blind, and then they all fall into hell. That's what the ditch is. The ditch is hell. And that's where we're at in society now. Right? 1 to 3% of your population would be considered righteous. The rest of them feel for the fire. Rotten roots that produce rotten fruit. And they are running everything. The fucking insane are running the asylum. That's where we're at now. At the end of the age. These are the days of Noah. Where there is no love anymore anywhere. It's just all about greed. And all about lies. And all about fraud. And all about making sure that the rich continue to get richer. While the poor continue to have their lives completely and utterly destroyed. Are you not paying attention to what's going on around you? So you can read in Psalm 6:8, 69:4, 139:21 through 22, Proverbs 12:8. I mean, go ahead. You go in there and you read what's happening between my living men and women, the peculiar people, and the rest of the populace. I've never in my life shown any respect to the vile, and I'm not going to start at any point, because that's not who I'm built to be. And so, like these things across Canada calling themselves attorney generals and referring to themselves as justices, you realize that they don't have any authority, right? That it's all fictional. It's all fake as fuck. It's like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, you pull back that curtain, you pull back that robe, you pull back that mask, those fucking ridiculous titles they all have, and they're just fucking all pieces of shit. They're all just fucking pieces of shit. Like, I mean, I'm serious. And they're all on the same team. They all think with the same accord. But let's see what the peculiar people have to say about this situation. I mean, let's just see, right, what my brother has to say, Isaiah. Isaiah 26:10. The kindness of the righteous to the wicked does not make them do good. Although others do right, the wicked keep doing wrong and take no notice of the Most High's glory. Now, if you don't understand what glory is truth and confession. That's the glory of the Most High. His glory is to tell the truth and to confess that you know the truth and that you're of the truth. Exodus 9:30. But as for you acting as ministers, and your underlings acting as public servants, we the peculiar people know you still do not respect, reverence, or fear the King of Kings, the Most High, who is going to be he is your judge. He's judging you right now. Whether you realize that or not is fucking irrelevant. Isaiah 32:6. As the mad, blind, and confused persons acting as ministers and justices and attorney generals and whatever title, whatever fucking mask that they've put on, speak foolishness and their hearts devise evil, so that they will commit fraud and speak deception to deprive souls that are hungry and deprive drink from the thirsty. Isaiah 3:15. Why do you, Nicholas Simmons, crush my people and grind the faces of the poor? The King of Kings is asking you a question, and you will answer. No, because this has now fucking come to the point where this is on like Donkey Kong, because you're not listening. Because you're one of the wicked, and that's why you're useless. Just like the rest of your pals who feed from the trough every year and continue to give yourselves annual raises while you continue to crush the peculiar people and to grind the faces of the poor into the ground. And it's my Father asking you that question, and I'm his mouthpiece. Isaiah 10:2. Politicians, bar members, and public servants deprive the poor of fair treatment and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people. You savages make widows your prey and orphans your plunder. Yeah, that's right. So sorry. There you are, right there in fucking living technicolor. Exactly who you are and what you are and the fruit you produce from the rotten root that you are. So private prosecutions in Canada, I mean, when you become the victim of a crime in Canada, it is your duty, responsibility, and obligation to hold the evildoer to account. You don't hand that job over to anybody else. That's your job. You can't trust the wicked with that job. They don't understand justice. Justice has always been and always will be eye for eye, tooth for tooth, stroke for stroke, fracture for fracture. What you had done to you, you are obligated to do to the evildoer. You can't get around it because nothing else is going to bring you wholeness and healing. Anything and everything else is wickedness. It's got no life in it. It's got no truth in it. It's got no love in it. Now, my brother explains to everyone, to the entire world, what happens when you're one of the peculiar people. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you. The servant is not greater than the master. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. If they kept my word, they're going to keep yours. But all these things they will do to you on account of, well, the one who sent us here. Because they don't know truth. Nor are they interested in the truth. Nor do they care about the truth. They're completely fucking loveless. And you better start to understand, right? That the peculiar people, we're peculiar people because we have pure blood. We're not hybrid. We're not human. The color of something. Humans are not people. They're not, okay? They're creatures. They're monsters. They're legally defined as monsters. And yes, you need to understand what your RH status is. I cannot take monkey blood. That will be the end of me. Now, I can give my pure blood to the monkeys, to the fucking satanic savage monkeys. That's no problem, but I can't take their contaminated fucking demonic blood. There's just no way that's going to work. If I put my blood in a petri dish right now, and then a human came and put some of their blood in that same petri dish, with your naked eye, without even a microscope, you could see those two blood types repel each other, move away from each other. We have nothing in common. That's why we're not allowed to have anything to do with that kind. They're toxic, noxious. They're contaminants. And they're in charge of everything, exactly as it's written. Right? So evolution is not a joke, right? That's what my brother was saying. Yeah, I'm from above. Yeah, right, exactly. So I can see from being out, I was out again today at a food bank, and I read the tweets that, are sent, that these individuals on this public service, on welfare, basically, is what you're on, they don't have the capacity to advocate for themselves. They just don't. They don't have that capacity, right? They're not able to advocate for themselves. They don't understand anything. So it's my job as a woman of wisdom and understanding and truth and knowledge, that's the content of my character. I have to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, and I have to speak up for the rights of all who are destitute, because that's my training. That's what I'm trained to do. I'm trained to preach and teach the way, the truth, and the life, just like all the rest of the peculiar people who were sent before me. And so that's what I'm doing here. So exactly as it's written, the chosen must speak the way, the truth, and the life to the wicked, whether the wicked listen or the wicked fail to listen. because they're rebellious. But once they've been spoken to and they don't turn around and do the right thing, that judgment becomes set. And hell is their eternal reward. And there's nothing they can do to get out of that. Right? You've committed blasphemy. A blasphemy is unforgivable. You're not getting around it. If you're going to disrespect the King of Kings and the way, the truth, and the life, you're finished. You have no hope and you have no future. There's nothing that can be done for you. I mean, because at what point are you going to get it? At what point are you going to understand? And what you need to start doing is you need to start using your eyes. Because exactly as it's written is exactly I've got it written out here. And I apologize to you. I'm dealing with a very old appliance. I'm dealing with an iPhone 6. And we all know we're now on iPhone 14. This is an appliance from 2017 that I'm utilizing to try to do my job to the best of my ability with what I have left, which is almost nothing. Because my home has been stolen and all of my personal chattel, most of it's been stolen, along with my entire inheritance has been stolen by covens of the wicked who seek to murder me. And this is there's constant like attacks on my life to end my life. So if it comes up blurry, I apologize to you, but I'm doing the best I can. So just listen to what I have to say because that's what's most important. So are you looking for the truth? Because that's exactly what you need to be doing, because you need to observe a human's habitual behavior and their patterns and their cycles, because the truth is in their patterns and their cycles. You know, words are cheap, right? But actions speak louder than words, because you have to understand the thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of absolute fucking bullshit that's written by, like, these criminal corporations like CIBC, or this thing calling itself the federal government of Canada, or this thing calling it the provincial government of British Columbia. Like, they have all this fucking bullshit written all over the place. None of it means anything. They don't follow any of it. They don't follow any of it. Because there's no accountability. So why would you follow any of it, right? There's no accountability at all anymore anywhere. You can't hold them to account. Right? They're all above the law. So habitual behavior, that's the fruit, right? Because the fruit is really the root. You got rotten fruit, you got yourself a rotten root. And what are you going to do with that? Well, it's going to be, hacked down and thrown into the fire, exactly like my brother told you. You're nothing. You're a piece of shit. What do you think my brother was doing when he rolled up onto the fig tree and the fig tree hadn't produced any of the fruit? And he cursed the tree and the tree died. That's what we do, right? You get that? How much do you know about the Psalms? No, you don't go in there and read that? You really should. Because here's the problem with this thing called Nicholas Simmons. He's not listening. This male monkey, this arrogant abomination is not listening. He can't even follow simple instructions I've laid out more than once in the last month. And here's the problem with that type of behavior. You got rules to follow, Mr. Simmons. No, you do. You got rules to follow. Now, when I was fighting for my home, I went in and I researched all these different conventions Canada's a party to. And, of course, I have the right to adequate housing. So I'm just going to read you this so you're going to understand what this arrogant abomination, Nicholas Simmons, is refusing to recognize. So the right to adequate housing, along with many other economic and social rights, is protected in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, specifically Article 11, which details the right to adequate standard of living and the continuous improvement of living conditions. I'm going to say that again in hopes it's going to sink in. The right to adequate housing, along with many other economic and social rights, is protected in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, specifically Article 11, which details the right to an adequate standard of living and the continuous improvement of living conditions. So I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I, as a regular client at the ministry, handing out welfare to those in need of help, for whatever reason they need that help for, they want to provide $915 a month to live off of. When we all know, because I taught you all this multiple times now, that basic living expenses in British Columbia are $2,000 a month. That's just basic living expenses. That's just keeping a roof over your head. And food. That's what it costs to live in British Columbia, $2,000 a month. And that's got nothing to do with any extras at all, like an emergency, or if you have a car, or if you need to go to the dentist, or any entertainment, or any clothing. That's just basic needs. Basic needs are $2,000 a month. And I don't care who you are or what you got going on. And yet they're providing less than half of that. So they're not following any of the rules at all. And again, like I keep telling you, I do a lot of research and a lot of writing, so when I was writing a deposition on how I'm treated by the witches acting as the court here in BC, I came across well, it's this garbage they roll through their whorehouses they're calling courts. And I'll just read to you a paragraph here. In its judgment, this thing calling itself Justice Ross reminded everyone that Canada was a party to several international human rights instruments, which recognizes adequate housing as a fundamental right. For example, in Baker versus Canada, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, 1999, to Supreme Court, 817, Supreme Court of Canada asserted at paragraph 70, international human rights law is a critical influence on the interpretation of the scope of the rights included in the Charter. So, this private for-profit Ponzi scheme corporation trying to pass itself off as the province of British Columbia is yanking in $65 billion a year in profit, all of it by fraud. They're hoarding over $5 billion. They're hoarding it. And so there should be absolutely no reason not to provide adequately for anyone who might need some help, whether that individual has decided to stand under the designation of person with disability or whatever, right? Or just a regular individual who might need some help. I mean, you have to understand the level of damage that's been done to me. And it's so severe that, number one, looking after myself is a full-time job because I'm the only one looking after me. And that's a full-time job. And then I'm trying to have to survive on top of that. Plus I have to fight and battle the wicked to do what's right. And that's also a full-time job. And it's completely overwhelming because I know that they're all deaf and I know that they're all blind because I know that they're all children of the devil. And yet these actors acting in these roles of minister, I do understand that they're getting $250,000 a year to do nothing all day, every day, and that's exactly what they do. Because if you're not paying attention, you're not going to be realizing that society is completely falling apart. Social development, my ass. Right, so what would happen if I now went and I laid criminal charges, which I have to do, I don't have a choice in the matter. I have to lay criminal charges against Nicholas Simmons and this thing calling itself Selena Robinson And now this new witch, David Eby, right? You've had a witch shuffle. You've just had a witch shuffle, right? They moved out one witch, and now they've put a new witch in that position of quote unquote premier of the province of British Columbia. It's October, right? It's the month of the witch. If you don't understand wickedness and evil and how it operates, I do. I have to. So if I let, because I have to lay criminal charges, right? You know, you understand how that process is going to work in their minds. In their minds, they're going to go hire themselves a liar. Now, do you understand why you don't hire a liar? Because hiring any liar waives constitutional protections, makes humans wards of the court with unsound mind. All bar members are witches, and they are. They're all compulsive liars. They're all murderers, thieves, and destroyers. There's not a sound word coming out of the sewer pipe that proceeds from their face. There's just, have you heard them? Have you heard them? Do you hear what they have to say? It's nothing of value at all. So if you don't understand attorney and client, right? The attorney's first duty is to the court and to the public and not to the client. And wherever the duty to the client conflicts with those they owe, as an officer of the court in administering justice, the former must yield to the latter. Okay, so they know nothing about justice. They don't go to a liar school to learn about justice. They go there to learn how to be a more effective witch. It's all procedure. It's all billable hours. So if, let's say this arrogant abomination, Nicholas Simmons, if I laid criminal charges on that thing would then automatically go and run to a liar. Because then that liar is going to create a wall of evil around the evildoer. And the two evildoers then are going to get away with murder, theft, and destruction. And it happens every day, all day long in the Commonwealth. And you sit there and you do nothing about it, making you part of the problem, making you guilty by association. You understand the whole thing's a joke, right? It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's just the biggest fucking joke you've ever heard. I mean, do any of you watch W5? So they keep talking about the absolute corruption within the RCMP across Canada and about how these male arrogant abominations acting as RCMP go and attack the female members of the quote-unquote force. Now, one of these female members has been daft enough to go hire itself a coven of liars. She spent $500,000 and gotten absolutely nowhere. Gotten absolutely fucking nowhere. So why would you do that? What would be the point of that? And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The misogyny and the hatred for women and the sexual harassment of the female quote-unquote force members, right? Because the male arrogant ape abominations know that they're above the law, and it's a brotherhood of bullshit. It's a brotherhood, and the brotherhood protects the brotherhood. That's why you can't get any justice when you go into a whorehouse in Canada here. I know, I just tried. Did you not read the civil claim of action I filed the beginning of 2020? Before I was actually kicked out of my home and all the money was embezzled, because I was trying to stop that from happening to me, which was my duty, obligation, responsibility. And they ran 2 satanic rituals on me. And then they told me that I was going to pay for them stealing millions of dollars from me, and they didn't need my signature. They didn't need my consent to then commit an act of genocide against me and not return my biological real property and not stop any of the fucking witches who were stealing my interest private property, which you can't do. Legally, you can't do it. You sure the fuck can't do it lawfully. And then embezzle the entire estate, which is genocide, if you don't understand that I've already explained that. And then not only did I not receive any justice, but then I had to pay for their satanic savagery upon myself, and they didn't need my signature. They didn't need my consent So that's why, if you've heard me in the last couple of days, or even yesterday, there's now been the King's Common Law High Court judgments written against all the covens of corruption that have done this to me and my family. And I don't need the fucking court's consent or anything acting as the court's consent. I don't need their fucking signature. I don't need that fucking court seal, that satanic, Masonic, demonic, Talmudic, Kabbalistic fucking court seal on any of those court orders. What the fuck does death have to do with life? What does Satanism and humanism have to do with a righteous woman who's in her right mind, who understands everything, because I do. Go look up the INFJ personality type if you don't fucking want to believe the scriptures. You don't think I know what justice is? You don't think I know what they owe and why they owe it? So fucking tired. Because you know I went and spoke to them, right? Yeah, right. So 3 weeks ago, there's a 29-minute public service announcement.
This is a public service
announcement. Here it is right here. I'm not going to go in and listen to it. Sorry. So, along with the presentation, right, because I can't trust the humans to go through the information on their own. You know, what the fuck good, you know, the mind is useless when the eyes are blind, right? So I have to go in there and I have to explain, you're stealing. Like, that's what you're doing. Like, you're acting against the life of your neighbor by not providing for their basic needs. Well, I'm afraid I can't sit around and let you get away with that. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. And these animals acting as the BC human rights, fuck, they're just fucking, listen to me, do you have any idea how many agencies there are in British Columbia that are supposed to be advocating for the poor? And you know that fucking all day, every day, the abominations behind those so-called advocacy offices get nothing done. They do nothing all day, every day. Did I not go over with you? The wicked are useless. And nothing changes. You got BC's home to Canada's second highest poverty rate. Well, what the fuck is going on here? What kind of fucking bullshit is that? That fucking whore be gone, that their arrogant abomination is making $200,000 a year? And then they get another $100,000? Are you joking? For doing what all day? You're fucking absolutely useless. What do you do all day? Nicholas Simmons, what do you do in regards to social development and poverty reduction? Because I know what you do all day, and it's nothing. You have nothing to do with social development and poverty reduction. And yet that's what you call yourself, the minister of this so-called public service office that's supposed to be social developing and making sure there's no poverty in the province. And you all got raises at the beginning of April, did you not? Over $1,500 a month? You all went and fucking fed from the trough, but you didn't go and help anybody else out? And if you do help them out, right, it's pennies that you throw at them. You just throw pennies at them. You just throw fucking nothing at them. You don't think you better know I'm watching, eh? You're fucked. The reason why BC has the worst poverty rate in Canada is, there's no social spending. They just don't fucking care. They really could fucking care less. Because remember, I went over this already. That just the average cost of living is $2,000 a month. That's rent. That you got to buy food. How about some transportation? How about just anything else in life that costs money? Because it all costs money. Every fucking time they steal away your right to do something, they sell you back your right to do it, right? They steal away your right to travel. And all of a sudden you got to fucking purchase a fucking driver's license. Well, that costs money. Right? And it just goes down. It just keeps going down and down and down. Right? You can't do anything here without them stealing money from you by fraud and extortion. Did I not tell you? So in 2020, BC's coven acting as the provincial government. So they've got a revenue of around $64 billion a year. Does that not bother you? Well, how do they make all that revenue? Because it's not by right, it's not by law that they do that. Where does all that money go? Well, where the fuck does it go? What's happening to all that money? Because it's not doing anything in regards of social development. So then these fucking assholes who act as like the BC finance minister, right? They fucking just lie their faces off. That's their native language, lying. But then you've got other auditors who go in there. So they're hoarding like what? So Auditor General says BC surplus should have been $6.5 billion higher. What? So are you telling me there's like almost $8 billion being hoarded? And you've got fucking tent cities everywhere. You can't supply housing. What's going on here? What the fuck is the problem? Because right, righteous men and women, we don't buy into the bullshit. Like, we just don't. We're not buying it, okay? We're not fucking buying it, okay? We understand the Wizard of Oz. We're off to see the wizard, are we? Okay, so you get to see the wizard, right? And then, but what really is the wizard when you pull back that curtain? It's some little fucking freak pulling some fucking levers. There's no fucking wizard. There's no such thing as the BC NDP. No, there isn't. There's no such thing as the BC legislature. There's no such thing as the fucking Provincial Court of British Columbia. No. Nope. There's no such thing as CIBC either. No, that you got some arrogant abominations who wear that mask, and because they wear that mask, they believe that they're fucking untouchable. That's what's going on here. So the middle class, what are the middle class making in Canada? About $55,000 to $100,000 a year. That's what they're making. That's the middle class. Those are more than likely folks trying to do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. That would be your middle class, right? Not trying to jack anybody. They're wiping out the middle class, by the way, if you're not fucking paying attention. If you've got your head fucking shoved right the fuck up your ass, you're not going to realize that there's basically no more middle class left. That's why they stole my home and embezzled the entire estate. Yeah, right. So if you take $35,000 a year, that's not middle class. That's still poverty line. You're looking at under $3,000 a month. And that's exactly what those who haven't understood that you're not a person, but okay, if you want to play that game, fine. So those who are designated as persons with disabilities, that's what they should be receiving every month. Because remember what it said here in the covenant, the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Article 11, the right to an adequate standard of living and the continuous improvement of living conditions. So if you're not going to provide for them their basic needs, then you're completely just ignoring that duty, obligation, or responsibility. Because remember, if you're a public servant, you have no fucking rights at all. You've got no rights at all. What you do have as a public servant are duties, obligations, and responsibilities to follow every single fucking law and legal rule on this fucking level of hell. That's your duty, obligation, responsibility, right? According to the law, your duty, obligation, responsibility is to love the truth and love the truth more than you love anything else, and then to love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's your lawful duty. And then you've got fucking football stadiums full of these fucking legal fucking rules. And you don't follow any of them. You don't even know any of them. You think the fucking assholes pretending to be Vic PD and Saanich PD know any of the legal rules? They don't. They don't. They don't have to. Who's going to hold them accountable, right? Okay, so here is a monthly report. So they want you to believe the lie that Canadian pension plan is income. It's not. The individual who decided to pay into that Canadian pension plan, the Canadian pension plan is a trust fund. The individual made income, yes. And with that income, it's only income once, they paid a portion of their income into that trust fund. So anyone receiving Canadian pension plan benefits, or anyone receiving survivor pension benefits, as I do because I'm a widow, you're not fucking subtracting. You're not going to claim that an inheritance is income. It isn't. It's an inheritance after it's paid into the trust fund. Right? But they fucking lie their faces off, and they'll continue to lie their fucking faces off exactly as it's written in Isaiah, so they can make sure that you can never get by. And that's the cream stroke for them, that you can't get by, and that your life is completely destroyed and you have no enjoyment of life, because you have any idea what stress does? What stress does to a man or woman, and then never mind, right, what stress does to the humans, because a human is just an animal. It's a male or female animal. So stress causes loss, harm, and injury to animals as well, right? And that's why they do this. Because I should be receiving $2,500 a month. I'm held up in 200 square feet and I pay $1,200 a month. I'm 200 square feet and I'm paying $1,200 a month. They saddled me with a fucking storage locker fee, $400 a month. I have a car, so there's car insurance. I have a phone, so there's a phone bill. Right? What about, I need to go to the dentist? I can't. I needed new glasses last year. Fuck, that was World War III. And I couldn't even get the glasses I needed because they wouldn't cover the cost. I can't go buy any clothing. I can't go buy any food. I can't get my car maintained. I can't do anything. And nobody gives a flying fuck. Nobody cares. Good for you guys. You know, because they've been subtracting. I should have never. And this last time, the last monthly report that I submitted, I didn't include the survivor pension benefits I receive. Because it's not income. It never has been and it's never going to be. So they've been subtracting. So over the entire year, right, that would have been September, that means they've stolen over $5,000 from me. By fraud. By fraud. Legally, a lie is called fraud. If you don't understand. Legal. Right, so I'm like, okay, well, so you got till Monday, October 3rd, you know, because I can't even look after myself. And I am so damaged. And because I have Rh negative blood, I have special needs. Which I've had to learn over the decades that I'm fucking here in level 1 of hell. And they don't care. And my physical health is continuing to deteriorate at a rapid rate. Nobody cares. I just fucking fired off an email last night to a whole bunch of these fucking arrogant ape abominations, providing directions, right? Because they're useless. They don't have a clue what to do. Well, you might not be willing to say something, but I am. Well, this is my Twitter account, one of them. Right, so here was my tweet this morning. So charges laid against BC NDP, BC legislature criminals Nicholas Simmons, Selena Robinson, and David Eby for refusing to follow the law as repeatedly commanded. Then I tagged both of the public service announcements I gave to them. Yeah. Public servants have no powers beyond those of the private men and women. Anyone can prosecute. I don't care who you are, anyone can prosecute if you know something's wrong. And hoarding is a mental illness for those of you who don't understand what mental illness is. Section 380 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Everyone who by deceit, falsehood, or other fraudulent means, whether or not it is a false pretense within the meaning of this act, defrauds the public or any person, whether ascertained or not, of any property, money, or valuable security, or any service, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 14 years. Well, they're guilty of fraud and mischief and torture if you don't know the legal rules. That's what's going on. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Are you going to fucking sit around and let this happen to your neighbor? After I keep explaining the same fucking thing? Because you're not listening? Or is it that you just don't fucking care because you have what you need? So that means then you have no respect for the truth. Or for life, if you're not worried about what's happening to your neighbor. Because I am worried about what's happening to my neighbor. Because I'm the one that's at the food bank. And I see what's happening. I feel what's happening. You know, most of these individuals are destroying themselves because they've never had anybody love them in their entire lives. And when you don't know how to love yourself, or you don't even know what that looks like, you just continue to do things that destroy yourself, which means you're destroying everything and everyone around you. Because what every single individual is doing is affecting every other single individual. I'm so fucking tired of having to fucking explain the same fucking thing. I can't do it anymore. And I'm so fucking tired. But like these fucking animals, they're not above the law. And if you can't even follow simple fucking instructions, then you're not going to act as a minister for a ministry. Because I'm not going to have you sitting there. Yeah, I'm removing you. I have to, right? And I do have that authority, right? I'm from above, okay? What's above has authority. Have you not been into one of these fucking whorehouses? That's why the witch walks up 3 stairs. If you know anything about fucking witchcraft, aka Freemasonry, that witch rolls out, right? Commands everyone stand. That thing walks up 3 fucking stairs and is now above. Sitting above everyone in that room. Well, my brother explained to you, right? Those from above are the ones in authority. And I can prove to you that I'm not from here. And I can prove to you that I have authority. Because living men and women have the authority over the animals. Over the male and female humans. I fucking tell you what to do. You don't tell me what to do. I'm the one giving you commands. Because I'm the woman who understands. And I know that you don't understand because you've proven it to me year after fucking year. And I don't want to fucking talk to anybody but you, Mr. Simmons. Because you are the problem. Mr. Simmons, have you gone in to listen to any of the conversations that I have had since I've been kicked out of my house when I call up the ministry and I need some help? You really should go listen to them because I know you could tape them. What do you call that? For quality assurance and training purposes? Well, I tape them now. I tape them now because there's 99